Both are renowned scholars in their own right, cultural economists, and known for their research work. Request all of you to assemble back in the hall, please.
Namaskar everyone. It's a great privilege and honor to share stage with Professor Kanagasabapathi ji. And it's always started working on this subject after reading one of his books, among a couple of more that were available those days. Though looking at my white beard, you may not feel that I'm younger to you, but so coming to the issue is that how our economic model is different. And I'll try to tell you through small examples what I call the philosophy of Indian business, and I'll try to share one huge strategic example how it is being used. Where do we start with? So, how do we write profit in Sanskrit, or most of the Indian language will be? Do we really write love, or we write something else? We write Shubh Labh, So it has to be an auspicious Shubh Labh. If you have made money by wrong means, it is not welcome in the society. So there are many such small nuggets that I'll share with you, and you will and sometime you might shock yourself that how come we didn't realize it so far. Have you bought anything from the vendor who sells using the weighing scale? Sure. So if you ask him to give you a 1 kg of potato, what will he do? He'll put it, and this is a generation which knows when I talk to MBA students, generally they can't recollect what happens. If you realize the steps, he'll wait and they'll add little more to it. Now, the poorest of the poor seller will do this in India, in all parts of India. Yes. If you ask why does he do it, he won't be able to answer you. Many people may not be able to answer, but when they open that shop, they still follow that. So the thought behind that is very simple. Even though it looks perfectly balanced, it still might be unbalanced. There's some error. I own that error, and hence add a little more to it. So depending on the commodity, in a day, he might be giving 5 to 10% of his product free. Now you all must have shopped here in Coimbatore or come from Bangalore or Chennai in a mall. Have you noticed up to how many decimal places you pay in a mall after decimal? How many? It's 3. Normally people think 2. So even if you bought a potato and it weighs 1.023 kg, you end up paying for 0.023 kgs. So that's a huge difference how the business is transacted. The gold is sold, if I'm correct, can't think of buying a gold from a long time looking at the price and being an author, but I think still sold at 2 decimal places and not 3 generally. So our practices are very different. So if you look around, take it further, in India, normal, and I think in some smaller Mufsil town or interiors of Mumbai, Kalwa Devi, it might be still true, that every morning when a shop is open, they'll keep a stool or a chair outside. So assuming in a row there are 2 kirana shops, so once the first sales of the day is done, what you call bohni in most part, yes, the shopkeeper will take the chair back inside or stool inside the shop. If he gets the next customer, he'll peep out of his kirana shop, he'll look at the other kirana shop. If his chair is still outside or stool, he will send the customer to that shop. Because every businessman must have a start of his business in the morning, though he might compete throughout the day with him after that. And it takes you to the next level when you move. You'll find something very unique, and I think it's unique to India alone, that you'll find there are shops, 5 shoe shops will be together. You know, 5 medicine shops will be together. And you'll be surprised that once one person opens, he generally invites the other relatives to open those shops. So you'll think that where is the sense of competition? So think of a stationery shops. There are today 500 kinds of pen, 100 kind of folder, and one shopkeeper can't store all of them. So if a person comes to buys, he doesn't get here. I think it happens only in India. The shopkeeper will guide you to which shop you will find it. Look at the Western model. I'll build the biggest mall. I'll sell A to Z everything. I don't want others to survive. So that's a huge difference in this business model. And I'll come back to this point, where does it originates from? You won't find a word for blackmail in any Indian language. As a concept, it didn't exist. There are many words which are in English, you can't find them in Hindi, from Hindi in English. But it gives you a drift, what kind of words you don't find in English and you find in Bharatiya languages. So there was one word for blackmail. As a concept, it didn't exist. So the next question comes is that then how come we become so corrupt? So it started with that we have been talking about mandirs a lot. So one of the reasons is that Jagannath Puri could not be destroyed completely because it was too far for Aurangzeb to go and see. So his people who came, they were bribed that you take that money and tell that mandir has been broken. And this was done once for Tirupati Mandir also. So that was the bribe. And most interesting, East India Company is to send a monthly report to England headquarters, like a good corporate. So they write that, and it's quoted, it's available, one can go and verify, I'll give you the source. Is that they write that as and when we move to the different parts of India, Indians learn to be corrupt. And most probably they learn this from us Christians. This is the exact word they write, because there was no secularism, communalism theory. So they honestly admit that, and that's how. So there is a word for pagoda, I'm sure. That was the word they used to use when they used to go extract money, British officers, from a businessman in Tamil Nadu. It was called shaking the pagoda. So that's how the business have been different and our concepts have been very different. So how do you inculcate such things? So the head of GMAT made a very nice statement that you can't teach ethics in MBA colleges, So generally the Western model as is that the kid will be corrupt, and then suddenly after he joins a corporate, will send him for ethics training program and he'll become ethical. It doesn't work. It has to come from the society, and I told you several ways. I'll give you 2 more examples and stop. So normally you'll see is that there is a picture of a Devi and Devata in an office or in a shop. So what do you think it is there? One, obviously you'll say is that because you are Bhakts. But there are more reasons behind it. So in Leicestershire in United Kingdom, there was a coffee machine in an office, and it was it was not manned. So whoever went to pick a coffee, he can take 1 cup of coffee and can leave whatever amount it was. Say 1 cent, he should leave 1 cent. If the guy has picked 3 coffee cups, they should leave 3 cents. They realized that the collection was very low, almost 1/10 of that what used to be consumed. So this theory that only Indians are corrupt is not true. British were original corrupts. And so they decided to experiment. So 1 week they put a sticker of a leaf there. Nothing changed. And the next week they put a picture of eye. Collection went up to 90%. So when you see is that in our system, Bhagwan Jagannath is all eyes, then Tridev. When you look at the eye, the first recall comes is of Devi. So eye is very important part of it. So when you think of doing, it is like, there are danglers in the shop. They are called in marketing terms, last point of recall. You have gone from home to buy Lux, and you will see a dangler saying 20% discount on Hammam. You will buy Hammam and come back. And what happens to in home is a different story. But so it stops you from taking a wrong mistake. If you watch a movie, Rocketman, Salesman of the Year, very interestingly it is captured. The hero thinks of cheating his customer, and then suddenly he raises his head and he says, Guru Nanak Dev's picture is there. And he drops the idea of cheating. You know? So each thing that we see is very nicely built. So how do we inculcate from childhood? Tomorrow in a school, I have a lecture they have organized where I'm talking how the lullabies, the loris, the kid games, and the stories that we hear as a kid make Indians a better entrepreneur. And it is a study done by David C. McLean in 1860. I'll just give an example of it. So the Saap CD, snake and ladder, that game you see, was called Moksh Patamu and was invented in India by Jain Munish. So there was no 1, 2, 3 in that. So if there was a greed, you'll get a snake. If you did a charity, you'll get a ladder. And so on and so forth. So 99 was lust. Excessive desire of anything is lust. Like for me, it's eating rasgullas. Signal to organizers. So, and 100 was moksha. So once you crossed lust, then you have the moksha. British couldn't connect with these words as usual and changed, and it eventually evolved in a game what we know today as a monopoly or a business. So monopoly or business is the game played most sold game in the world. There are competitions, there are guides, people do PhDs. So in monopoly, you land up in a jail. Those of you who would have played, So you have two choices. You pay a fine and move out, or you remain in a jail. What will you do? So 99% this is the answer. Nowadays, one of kids in MBA colleges race that, I'll save money. So if a game that tells you is that to save money, you can be in the jail, that tells you how an economic model will be. And it's not surprising that every 7 years from I started working, America comes under recession because some great CEO has done a great scam. So those small things which build on and decide how will you behave. So that's a business philosophy. If you look, ours is a very trust-based society, and our business was a very trust-based. And with this, I'll stop and...
Thank you. Good evening. For almost 200 years, we have believed that there are only two economic models in the world, namely capitalism and communism, Western capitalism. In 1989, the then USSR President Gorbachev announced, it was a communist country, that communism has failed. So in 2008, there was a global economic crisis. All of us know this Western capitalism has been facing serious difficulties over the last 150 years. And in 2008, there was a serious crisis which affected most of the countries, particularly the richer countries of the world. So the Nobel laureate who won the prize in 2008, himself an American economist from Princeton University, his name is Paul Krugman. He openly acknowledged, I quote, much of our economic theories have proved to be harmful to the society. Their meaning, Western. So much of our economic theories have proved to be harmful to the society. So it is clear now, both the Western economic models, namely capitalism and communism, that have been dominating the global scenario for the last 150, 200 years, have failed. And all of us know that now the West is having very serious problem. If you take, say, for example, maintenance of families, societies, they call it as social security expenses. It is between 20 to 30, 35% in different countries, which they will not be able to spend. In France, for example, as per latest data, the social security expenditure was 32% of GDP. In US and the UK, 20%, 22%. So this was the position. So Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations was written in 1776. Marx, Das Kapital was written in 1867. So how can these books, which were written in 1776 and 1867, can guide a nation with thousands of years of civilization, with prosperous economic history, how can it guide us? So this is the fault of our policy makers and the economists in independent India. Bharat has always been a performing economy. We all know that the first textbook on economics was written here 2400 years back. And cities like Harappa, Mohenjo-daro were international commercial cities 5000 years back. Whereas the Western uh, um, economic powers, if we can so say so, now they are not powers. US, UK, countries like this, they entered the global economic map only in the 15th and 16th century. Yes, by their own admission. So this is the position. And their economic development was also is based on looting of different countries through wrong policies, destructing the colonial economies and all. But if you see Bharatiya economy, till maybe 1800, 1850, ours was more balanced economy. There are three sectors, what we call agricultural sector, industrial sector, services sector. Only when there is a balance, there will not be any economic problem. So we were always a finely balanced economy. This is a unique future. And our economy is always based on, our economics is based on ethics. I can give several examples. Tirukural, Tiruvalluvar has written an entire chapter on means of wealth, how to earn wealth. Araninum, inbamuminum, Tiranarindhu, Tidindri, Vanda Porul. If you want to get satisfaction, as well as, the kind of dharmic feeling, then you have to earn wealth only through proper means. So there are nine other verses like this. So there are practical examples for it also. Then the third unique aspect of Indian economy is, we always viewed economics as part of the whole, integrated whole. Economics is related to families, societies, and it's all driven by culture. But in the West, economics is always viewed as something separate from other aspects of study. So economics is not fully connected with society, family, culture. So this is the unique features of Indian economy. Recently in January 2025, in the World Economic Forum, an important report has come. Report published by Oxfam, the famous popular NGO. It's titled Takers, Not Makers. It says, in a period of just 135 years during British period, between 1765 and 1900, 64.82 trillion worth of wealth was taken out of India. In 135 years, 1 trillion is equal to approximately now 9 lakh crores. 9 lakh crores. 64.82 trillion was taken out of India. That means today the present GDP of America is around 30 lakhs. So more than twice the current GDP of India were taken out of India in a period of 135 years by Britain. I quote one of their lines in the report. This amount will be enough to carpet the surface area of London in British pound, British 50-pound notes almost 4 times over. So if you cover the amount taken out of India with 50-pound notes, I calculated this morning, it was about 5,800 rupees. Maybe we can take it as 6,000 rupee note. We can cover the entire London 4 times over. So this was the wealth that was looted from India, as a result of which we became poor nation. In 1750, our contribution to global industrial output was 25%. In fact, it was decreasing due to Mughal rule. But even then it was 25%. In 1900, it was just 2%. So Bharatiya economy was completely destroyed by the Britishers. And if you take Madras presidency alone between 1800 and 1830, 30 years, 1/3 of the farmers were driven out of agriculture because of very high taxation policies. So all of us know our education system was completely destroyed. In 1820s, our literacy rate was somewhere around 96-97%. In 1891, it was 9.1%, as per Will Durant data. So this was how Bharat was destroyed. This we have to understand. But if we see now, after independence, now 78 years, in just 78 years, we are the third largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity. We are the fastest growing nation in the world, and we have the largest number of entrepreneurs in the world. This many of us may not realize. We have the largest number of entrepreneurs in the world, and all the international agencies, all the multilateral bodies, research consultancy firms, research firms, they unanimously say Bharat would be the most important potential power in the coming years. Just 78 years. 78 years back, we were a poor nation. Today, we are the most potential nation. If you read the economic history of the world, last 2000 years, details are available. No other country has achieved this distinction. 78 years back, you were a poor. Today, we are the most potential economy because of our resilience. So this much capacity we have, but we were insulted by our own leftist economists between 1950 and 1980s. Our growth rate was slow, 3.5%, and they called it as Hindu rate of growth. But we compared that growth with the growth rate of Europe and America. When you compare it with the growth rate of America and UK, Europe, it was either equal or much better than them. But even then, our growth rate was, called as Hindu rate of growth. But it was Nehruvian rate of growth, it was socialist rate of growth, nothing to do with Hindus. But this is how they were treated. So for a period of more than 60, maybe 65 years in Bharat after independence, either communist policies, approaches, or the globalized Western policies were in place. But in spite of it, Bharat has been growing. So in spite of the wrong policies, unsuitable policies of the government of India, we have been growing. This is the uniqueness of Bharatiya economy that we all have to understand. This is because we have our own ways of functioning. We have our own way of functioning. Here, economics is closely related with families, societies. It is the Hindu culture that is driving the Bharatiya economy since the ancient periods. So we have been very, very prosperous economy for thousands of years. Some of you may be knowing Angus Madison study, which says that during the beginning of the common era, 2025 years back, our share of GDP, global GDP was 33%, 32.9%. We were the superpower. And this number one position continued for several centuries. Bharat and China were the top two economies during the last 2 millennia for almost 80 to 85% of the time. So we had sustainable economic systems with us, and because of which, even after complete almost near destruction of Bharatiya economy, today we are regaining it. So this we have to understand. This is because we have our own systems as such. I'll stop here. I'll give it.
Thank you. So the next question that comes to mind is that did we build brands or did we have our own unique Indian strategic models? So I'll just give you one example of it. So when the so-called liberalization, which is the next part I'll talk, happened, there were multinationals coming to India, and Indian companies were rightfully worried. They didn't have an access to technology, the finance, and because of Nehruvian policies. So they were asking for level playing field. And they were, there's Bombay Club, what was called, of Rahul Bajaj, Ratan Tata, Kumar Mangalam Birla, Aditya Vikram Birla was that time, talking about it, liberalization, how to give a level playing field to Indian companies. But there was a Pepsi and Coke were coming to India, and they were the biggest threat to the people who sell Nariyal Pani or a Nimbu Pani. Right? Say Campa Cola had a wherewithal to fight it out or sell them out. What will a nariyal pani guy do? And for the young generation who may or may not realize is that when Pepsi or Coke were launched, the queue was overnight. Cities like Bombay, the way you see for new iPhone launch. And some people would have seen, people, when the can was launched, people used to keep can their office as a status symbol. You know, you walked in and the can is there that I had 6 cans of Coke or a Pepsi. So that was the kind of craze. So you can imagine, and this nariyal pani sellers or a nimbu pani sellers didn't have an association or no political party to speak for them. And they survived. And they fought. So what did they do? That's a very interesting part of it. So what they did, they got a thermocol box, put Coke, ice inside, and they started selling Coke and Pepsi also along with nariyal pani or a nimbu pani. And slowly today, if you look, that desire to have consumption has gone up because of the population has gone up, but I think per individual consuming Coke and Pepsi has gone down. The price point of Coke or Pepsi when they were launched was rupees 5 and 10. Today the price point, lowest price point for Coke and Pepsi is 10. Nariyal pani those days was 10. In Bombay, depending on where you stay, it varies from 90 to 750 rupees. Yeah. So it varies where you have and where you want to have it. So how did these guys fought back and what kind of thinking was there? So you have to understand, if you look at the marketing term, a Pepsi or a Coke is here to increase the market share of Pepsi or a Coke. The nariyal pani seller or a nimbu pani seller is not in the business of increasing the market share of nariyal pani or a nimbu pani. Imagine he hasn't gone to an MBA college, he hasn't hired a consultant. He is very clear what business he is in. He is in the business of quenching thirst. And if you and he will sell anything which satisfies your thirst. So this understanding of the business is very important, and people, it is a traditional wisdom. It's not one-off case. I'll give another example. So when Cadbury's was launched, and my generation people would have seen how it started. The first ad came because the chocolate used to be only for kids. That the crazy ad of my generation that the girl walks in the cricket field, which they had launched some time back. That was to get the youth to eat chocolate. Then it came before that came an uncle and walking, and a school bus passes and a football drops. Uncle kicks and the ball goes, and then it comes a chocolate. So the parent should eat chocolate, and then become mahine ki pehli tarikh hai, so that it should become part of grocery. And they were successful. In my house, it was ordered along with monthly grocery, 5 packets of Cadbury's bhi bejna hai. And many houses. So they look, it's a brilliant marketing people, and great Piyush Pandey, who passed away recently, had done all those creative and thinking was that. So that time, I was more grown up and I was with Swadeshi and have read Kanagasabapathi book. I was worried what will happen to Indian mithai walas, and I'm a big sweet tooth. So I spoke to one of the biggest mithai shops in Bombay. I said, why don't you all, some of you collect together, we'll make counter advertisements, to counter. He said, Sandeep, yaar, chodo mithai khao, hum log dekh lenge. I said, it's perfect. And dekh liya un logon ne, So what did they do? So if you look in India, you give us anything, we'll make a laddu out of it, right? Just think how many type of laddus we have. Give us anything. So they created chocolate laddu, chocolate ki barfi. Imagine the Cadbury spent over the years thousands of crores in advertisement to make a brand out of Cadbury's. Our mithai walas reduced it to commodity, just put another tray of laddu. And now what, you go and tell ki kaju katli bhi dena to kaju ka dena, Cadbury flavor ka dena, thoda mango flavor ka dena, that's all. Again, these guys were very clear. These guys were in the business of increasing market share of Cadbury's. This guy was in the business of selling sweets. It's very important to understand what business are you in. And I'll give you a big corporate example. It is Ratan Tata. I think they wouldn't have removed it, still on their website of Tata Sons. I've quoted him in my book that he said that he started thinking, what business are we in as a Tata Steel? Because the steel that they produce was consumed maximum by the automobile company. But today you have to make automobile lighter and stronger because of fuel consumption. So they said fiber is a better option. So Tata Steel has to think which business are we in, to increase the market share of steel or to produce products which will make better cars. And Tata started having in fiber, because fiber is more stronger and lighter. And the second thing they did was that they sold off the tree plantations, because they said we are in the business of tea, not growing tea. Because one crop goes bad, since it's your garden, you are stuck with it. Now they go around the world, and wherever the best tea is available, they buy it. Why should I'm in the business of selling tea, not producing tea? So it's so important to understand what business are you in, and it's our, the traditional wisdom. And the mithai walas, they didn't form a union, they didn't go to a consultant. They know how to deal with multinational companies who come. And that's the beauty of our Indian business and strategic models. So I've given you just one example of it. My book is there and called Indian Ocean Strategy, where I've given you 10 such different strategic models. That book was written under the guidance of Swami Vigyananji. And why did I call Indian Ocean Strategy is equally interesting? Is that, have you ever thought, I keep asking people, how many of you can draw a map of Indian Ocean? And for rest of you, not your fault, because only ocean named after country, it's not taught in our geography also properly in schools. And I ask people, do you think, what is the southernmost tip of Indian Ocean? It touches which country? Australia. And so 33 countries are around Indian Ocean rim. 60% of world trade, 80%, 60% of world crude oil passes through that. That's the importance of Indian Ocean. So why was it called Indian Ocean? Because our ancestors traded with all the nations around Indian Ocean. And I was talking in Jalgaon, sir. One of the businessmen stood up and gave me an additional information. He said, when you go to the southernmost tip of Africa, the two oceans meet. And we might have seen videos that the water doesn't mixes up. I'm not very sure. I have not been to that place. But he told me that the local folklore is very interesting. He said people who came from that side, that the west of Africa, they represent that ocean because the ocean is very violent, and the people who are violent, Europeans, Americans, they enslaved them. Indian Ocean is a peaceful ocean because that's how the Indian businessmen were when they came. They treated as a human being. So that's a great legacy our forefathers have left. And you will be very surprised that Pakistan initiated a movement backed by Saudi Arabia and Indonesia to change the name of Indian Ocean. And now it will be more difficult because now it's moved to Asia Pacific from we have moved in geopolitics to Indo-Pacific. So yeah, but that's the important part of it, and that's something we must remember, the impact that we have. So that's...
Thank you. So the reason for the superior performance of Bharatiya economy over the last several millennia is due to her own native models, native functioning methods. You take the present situation. All of us know in the last 70, 78 years, Bharat has always been having higher savings rates. We are one of the highest saving nations in the world. Last year our saving was 31% of GDP. And Indians, wherever they are, even when they are with people around them spending money in USA, Europe, etc., they save money. If you see the World Investment Report over the last 10-15 years, it is the NRIs, Indians, who send the highest amount of money to their home country. Last year, $125 billion. It is not the Chinese, it is not the Mexicans, it is Indian. So we accumulate enormous savings every year, and the amount of gold that we have, we do not know. It is estimated recently that it could be anywhere between 35,000 tons and slightly more also. So much amount of wealth we have. Second, for any economic activity, particularly business, we need to mobilize funds. And here we have our own method of mobilizing funds. Different regions of India, Bharat, we have our own local methods. Our people have developed. For example, in southern part of Tamil Nadu, the Nadar community, who were all earlier engaged in Palmyra tree climbing, they developed a system called Mahamai. That is their own method. So wherever they are in their villages, everybody was asked to contribute initially 1 paise, 2 paise for every 1 rupee of their earning every month. So this is how they started accumulating wealth as a result of which, it helped their community people to enter into business, and today they are one of the most entrepreneurial communities in India. Local model. I can go on giving examples. In Rajkot, for example, we know Rajkot is the uh, most important engineering center in the world, not just India, world. When we asked them, how did you enter into business? When you entered, how did you mobilize funds? They said, sir, we come to this town to learn business. And after 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, when we learn, we go back to our villages and announce, I am going to set up my own unit. So more than 50% of the people said they mobilized funds through their own relatives and friends. So this is a Bharatiya method of mobilizing funds. And as I told you, the kind of entrepreneurship that we have, enormous. We have about 3,000 clusters in India today, more than 3,000. And each of these clusters are homegrown. Coimbatore today has only one engineering college, one polytechnic, one arts college. But this is one of India's most important business industrial center, vibrant center, completely built by the local people. So everywhere this is like this. Surat is just one city, 2 lakh crore turnover, annual turnover. Only two businesses, diamond business and saris, wholesale sari shops. There were more than 25,000 shops when we calculated last time. So these are all our own native models. Entrepreneurial methods are something unique that we all have to understand. For the role of our own women, our own mothers, sisters, grandmothers, wives, they play a very, very significant role in economic development, but there is not a single line about the role of family and our own mothers and sisters in our modern economic textbooks. So we have a unique system that we have to understand. So this is time for us to rethink our economic pathways, whatever method that we have to take. So rethinking prosperity is very important. That is the title Jagan has given today for us to speak. So it is time for us, because now it's proved that Bharat has her own native functioning models, performing models, superior to many of the models in other countries, Western countries. So this we have to understand. First, we have to recognize that there are the local native models functioning at the local level, and we have to understand it, disseminate this information. Everything, is it perfect? It may not be. We have to improvise it, but we have to understand that it is because of the Bharatiya models based on our Hindu way of life that we are progressing as an economic, emerging as an economic power. And there is completely an Hindu economic system functioning in this country, in this great country. Absolutely, there is no doubt about it. We need not hesitate to say that there is no place for Hindu ways of life. No. In 1905, Max Weber wrote a book, Protestant Capitalism and Protestant Ethics and Spirit of Capitalism. He said only Protestant countries would prosper. After a few years, he wrote a book on India and China. He said countries that practice Hinduism and Buddhism will never progress because they believe in karma and rebirth. But it is these two countries that are coming up now with Bharat emerging as a global power at a faster rate. So Hindu faith is working at the ground level in terms of economics and business fields. So we have to understand it, study it. So our pathway to prosperity is through Bharatiya ways of approach rooted in our Hindu dharma. Thank you very much.
We have 2 minutes. Since Sir talked about the important, that insulting remark that they have left for Hindu rate of growth. So I studied, and what I call is that it was not the growth that we see in 1991 is not due to the so-called liberalization, because if you remember, liberalization was called LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization. There was no T in that. There was no technology transfer. What we got is a McDonald's burger and Coke and Pepsi. And the very interesting part of it is that Mr. P. Chidambaram went to London and made a statement that you rule India for 200 years, come once again and make money. And he repeated the statement in New York. So that was the policy of liberalization was. What I say is that from 1991, things started turning out, changing for us is because it was a new India, more resurgent India, because it believed that it can make the Ram Mandir, and the construction started from that time. So I see the growth that we see from 91 onwards is actually Mandir rate of growth. That is what you will find on the cover of the book, and that's how we need to talk it. Thank you.
Awesome. Sir, with your permission, can I say that you have introduced a new course for the first time in independent India's history in Delhi University, sir? Delhi University, in Delhi University on a subject called Hindu economics. I think this is the first time a subject like, it is the first time a subject like that is being introduced in curriculum, and the effort to mainstream this is being fructified. So things are moving in the right direction. Thank you so much. Sandeep Singh sir, thank you so much. Sri Sandeep Singh ji has books on temples. Did you go to Mandir today? His t-shirt says. So he has a big project in mind. So we'll be discussing it post the event.